The river roars like a beast unleashed from the depths of the earth, thrashing against everything in its path. The once peaceful waters that gave life to the land are now a torrent of chaos, sweeping away anything foolish enough to be too close. The Beaver Dam, carefully crafted over seasons, now faces a force it was never built to withstand. Water crashes violently against wood, trees uprooted and sent tumbling into the depths. The beavers, unprepared for such fury, scramble in vain to protect their homes. But the river's rage is a relentless, unforgiving tide. Families trapped in the chaos flee, yet the flood seems to mock their desperation. Finn, a young beaver, watches in horror as his world unravels before his eyes. The water, dark and swirling, threatens to swallow everything. The storm above rages even louder, and the forest is consumed by a deafening roar of fury, drowning the cries for help. There is no escape. As Finn clings to the log, the storm rages on, with the floodwaters threatening to consume everything in sight. His tiny paws tremble from exhaustion, but he refuses to let go. The once peaceful forest now looks like a nightmare. The sounds of splintering wood and distant cries echo through the air, blending with the roar of the river. The life he knew, his home, his family, all of it, feels like a distant memory, swept away by nature's fury. There's no sign of his parents or siblings, just the endless expanse of water stretching out before him. With each passing second, the waters rise higher, and Finn knows his time is running out. He can't just wait for the river to take him, he must move. But where? The world he once trusted, the world that once had meaning, now feels like a trap with no escape. And yet, Finn holds on, his gaze fixed on the uncertain horizon. The storm doesn't care about hope. It doesn't care about what's lost. It only cares about survival. The hours pass like an eternity. The storm has not relented, and Finn's body aches with cold and fear. His once bright eyes now reflect the despair of a world gone wrong. The only movement comes from the relentless river, dragging debris along with it. Finn's thoughts begin to blur together. His mind races to memories of his home, the sound of the river as it once murmured gently by his dam, the laughter of his family as they worked together. It seems impossible that such peace could have ever existed. The flood feels like it has stolen not just his home, but his very identity. But then, as the night stretches on and the storm reaches its peak, something changes. A flicker of movement on the far bank catches Finn's attention. Is it a beaver? Is it a sign of hope? He doesn't know, but it's enough to stir him into action. Even if the river tries to tear him apart, even if it feels like all is lost, Finn knows he must try. He has to find the others, find his family, or at least the strength to survive the unrelenting fury of the flood. With his heart racing, Finn forces himself to swim. Every stroke feels like it might be his last. The current pulls at him, almost trying to drown him, but Finn fights back, using every ounce of strength left in his small body. His muscles scream in protest, but he can't stop now. The figure across the river could be his family, or perhaps another survivor, someone who understands. As he approaches the bank, Finn's breath is ragged, his vision blurred by exhaustion and water in his eyes. The silhouette becomes clearer. A beaver, an older male, swimming toward him with steady determination. Atlas, a beaver who has survived other floods in his lifetime, looks down at Finn as he struggles to reach the shore. His fur is worn, his eyes sharp with the wisdom of someone who has endured great trials. He is older than Finn, perhaps by 5 or 6 years, but still strong enough to pull Finn from the water when the current nearly takes him under. For the first time since the flood began, Finn feels something akin to safety. Once safely on a higher patch of ground, Finn collapses beside Atlas, too weak to stand. The flood waters still rage below them, but for now, they are out of the river's grasp. Finn looks up at Atlas, his eyes wide with both gratitude and exhaustion. Atlas' face is stern, but there is a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "The river doesn't care who we are," Atlas says, his voice rough from the storm. "But we still have a chance, Finn. As long as we're alive, there's hope." Finn can barely comprehend the words, his mind still clouded with the images of his family swept away. But one thing is clear, he is not alone. With Atlas by his side, he knows that survival, even in this chaotic world, is possible. But the river is still raging, and the storm is far from over. What comes next will be the true test of their will to live. The storm has passed, but the devastation remains. Finn and Atlas sit in the remnants of what once was a forest, surrounded by broken trees and the wreckage of their world. The floodwaters have receded, but the land feels empty. Atlas, older and wiser, surveys the damage. "This land was home," he says quietly. "But now it's nothing but a graveyard for what was." Finn looks around, his heart sinking as he sees the remnants of his family's dam, splintered and scattered across the land. There is nothing left of what was once familiar. The trees, which had once provided shelter, are now twisted and broken, their roots exposed. The river that once nourished the land has left nothing but desolation in its wake. Finn feels the weight of the silence. Everything that gave him a sense of identity, of belonging, has been swept away by the flood. He swallows hard, forcing back tears. "What now?" he asks, his voice barely a whisper. Atlas looks down at him, his expression stoic yet kind. "Now we survive. That's all we can do." Days pass as Finn and Atlas struggle to find food and shelter in the barren landscape. The storm has left them with nothing but the remnants of what once was. Finn feels the weight of the world on his small shoulders. The journey ahead seems endless, the land so unfamiliar, its once vibrant colors now muted and gray. Atlas is not without his own burdens, but he bears them with quiet strength. He moves through the destroyed forest with purpose, searching for anything that might sustain them. Finn, however, feels lost. The forest is no longer home, but a place of endless survival. The only sounds are the calls of distant birds and the rush of the river far away, now just a silent reminder of the chaos that had consumed everything. Despite their efforts, the food is scarce, and the hunger gnaws at their bellies. It is in these moments between the exhaustion and fear that Finn begins to understand the true cost of survival. They are not just fighting for their lives, they are fighting for their future. Weeks pass, and the landscape begins to change. While the river has receded, its effects linger in the altered world around them. Finn and Atlas have managed to find shelter in a small cave hidden deep within the forest. It's not much, but it's enough to keep them safe from the elements. The journey has taken its toll. Finn's body is thinner now, his once bright eyes dimmed by the constant struggle. But it's not just the physical exhaustion that weighs on him. It's the emotional burden of everything he's lost. He often finds himself staring at the remnants of the flood, the wreckage that was once his home. The memories of his family, the laughter, the simple joys of their life before the river came, seem to fade with each passing day. Atlas, however, remains a pillar of strength. "The past is gone," he says one evening as they sit together in their cave. "But we're still here. That's what matters." Finn nods, though the ache in his heart remains. One morning, as the first light of dawn breaks through the trees, Atlas rises with a sense of purpose. "We need to find food," he says quietly, his voice firm. Finn, still groggy from sleep, nods, but he knows the task will be difficult. The forest is still recovering from the flood, and food is hard to come by. The journey to find sustenance takes them through an unfamiliar landscape, the once bustling forest, now eerily quiet. They move carefully, every step measured. As they walk, Atlas teaches Finn the skills he will need to survive. "You need to trust your instincts," he says, his voice calm yet authoritative. Finn listens intently, his small body following closely behind. With each step, he feels more connected to the world around him. Despite the fear that still lingers, there is a growing sense of resilience within him. Atlas lessons are beginning to take root. As they search for food, Finn begins to understand the true meaning of survival. It's not just about finding sustenance, it's about understanding the land, the way the trees grow, the way the river moves. Atlas has taught him to listen to the world around them, to read the signs of nature. But even with Atlas' guidance, the hunger is beginning to take its toll. Finn's body feels weak, his energy fading with each passing day. They haven't found enough food to sustain them, and the landscape seems to offer little. The promise of survival feels distant, but Atlas' unwavering resolve gives Finn a reason to keep going. He knows that as long as Atlas is with him, there is hope. The journey is long, and the road is hard, but they are not alone in their fight. The days grow longer, and the struggle for survival intensifies. Finn and Atlas have moved deeper into the devastated forest, hoping to find a stable food source, but each day brings more hardship. The hunger gnaws at them, and the constant search has left them both weak. The forest, which had once been a place of peace, now feels like a vast wasteland. The wind howls through the bare branches, and the ground beneath them is treacherous, covered with slick, flooded patches. Finn, though exhausted, pushes forward, his determination fueled by Atlas' quiet strength. "It's out there, Finn," Atlas says, his voice steady. "We just have to find it." But the constant uncertainty weighs heavily on Finn's heart. Every step feels like a gamble, the ground beneath him giving way with each movement. Despite their best efforts, they have found little food, and their bodies are starting to show the strain. The once vibrant forest now feels like a cold and indifferent place, a reminder of how fragile life is in the face of nature's fury. A distant howl reaches their ears, causing both Finn and Atlas to freeze. It's not the sound of a predator, but a lone wolf, calling into the empty forest. The howl echoes through the trees, the eerie silence afterward only amplifying the tension. Finn's heart races. Predators are never far away, especially in times of scarcity. The hunger that has already settled in their bellies now has another danger. The predators are desperate, just as they are. Atlas's eyes narrow as he listens to the howl, his body tense. "We need to move," Atlas says softly, his voice calm but firm. Finn nods, but fear grips him. "What if it's the last of them?" Finn asks, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if they're coming for us?" Atlas gives him a steady look. "We'll be ready." But Finn can't shake the feeling that time is running out. As they continue on their journey, the forest seems to close in on them. The sounds of distant predators grow more frequent, their howls becoming an almost constant reminder of the danger that lurks just beyond the trees. Finn feels the weight of his exhaustion, but he can't stop moving. The air is thick with the scent of wet earth and decay, and the sky above is darkening, threatening another storm. Atlas, ever watchful, leads the way with a quiet resolve, but Finn senses the fear in his mentor's movements. The days have become endless cycles of searching and surviving, with no end in sight. Every rustle of leaves, every break in the trees, feels like a potential threat. Even the land itself seems to resist them. "Stay close," Atlas says, his voice low but urgent. Finn stays at his side, his small body trembling with both fear and fatigue. They are not alone in this forest, they never have been. The tension in the forest heightens as the predators seem to be drawing closer. The distant howls are replaced by rustling sounds in the brush, and soon the unmistakable sight of a large shadow moves between the trees. Finn's heart leaps in his chest. A predator, a wolf, has found them. His body freezes, fear gripping him. Atlas, however, remains calm. "Stay still," Atlas whispers, his voice barely audible. Finn looks up at him, but before he can respond, the predator steps into the clearing. It's a large, powerful wolf, its eyes fixed on them. Finn can feel his pulse quicken, and his breathing becomes shallow. But Atlas stands tall, blocking Finn's view of the wolf. "We're not prey," Atlas says softly, a warning in his tone. The wolf snarls, but it does not approach. Instead, it watches them for a long moment before it disappears back into the woods. After the encounter with the wolf, the silence in the forest feels even more suffocating. Finn is shaken, his body still trembling from the close call, but Atlas remains composed. "That was too close," Finn says, his voice weak. Atlas doesn't respond immediately, but instead continues walking, his eyes scanning the trees. The forest isn't just quiet, Atlas says after a long pause. It's watching us. Always. Finn looks up at him, confusion in his eyes. Ikanu. What do you mean? Atlas turns to him, his expression somber. Survival isn't just about food or shelter, Finn. It's about understanding the land. The creatures here aren't just predators, they're part of this world too. We're not the only ones trying to survive. The weight of Atlas' words sinks in, and Finn feels the truth of it. They are just one small part of this brutal, unforgiving world. As the days pass, the forest continues to test Finn and Atlas, pushing them further to their limits. The hunger, the exhaustion, the constant tension, all of it has taken its toll. But despite the struggle, they press on, finding small victories in the simplest of things. One evening, as they settle beside a small stream, Atlas looks at Finn with a rare softness in his eyes. You've done well, he says, his voice low but filled with an unexpected pride. Finn, exhausted but still fighting, gives him a tired smile. But there is something in Atlas' gaze, a hint of something deeper, something Finn doesn't fully understand. The land has a way of revealing things. Atlas continues, his eyes scanning the landscape, but not always what you want to see. Finn, intrigued, asks, "What do you mean?" Atlas remains silent for a moment, as though weighing the right words. Then he speaks, his voice steady but filled with an unsettling truth. Survival isn't just about what we've lost. It's also about what we've found. About who we are when we've been stripped of everything. The next day, as they continue their journey through the forest, Finn begins to notice strange signs, broken branches, unusual tracks in the mud. Something is off. At first, he dismisses it as another part of the forest's unpredictable nature, but the signs grow more frequent, more deliberate. Atlas seems unfazed, his focus always ahead, but Finn can sense the subtle change in him, the way his eyes dart around more often, as if he's searching for something. And kind, more after you hadn't. Atlas, what's going on? Finn finally asks, his voice filled with unease. Atlas slows his pace, his eyes flicking to Finn before returning to the path ahead. There's something out here, Atlas says quietly, his voice tinged with caution. Something we didn't expect. Finn's heart skips a beat. What do you mean? What's out here? Atlas doesn't answer immediately, but his next words leave Finn with a chill. The river wasn't the only thing that changed the forest. The strange tracks lead them to a hidden part of the forest, one that seems untouched by the flood. The trees here are different, taller, older, their bark thick and gnarled. Finn and Atlas stop in a small clearing, the silence around them deep and unsettling. The tracks end here, but there's a sense of something watching them. This is where they live, Atlas says quietly, his voice barely a whisper. Finn, confused and uneasy, looks around. Who lives here? He asks. Atlas doesn't respond immediately. He kneels to examine the ground, his expression serious. Not who, Atlas murmurs, but what? Finn's eyes widen as he notices something in the distance, movement among the trees. Before he can speak, Atlas pulls him back. Stay quiet, he warns. We've entered their territory. Finn's heart races as he realizes they are not alone in the forest. Someone, has been watching them all along. The silence is broken by the sudden rustling of leaves. The trees shift, and the ground beneath Finn's paws seems to tremble. Then, from the shadows, figures emerge, tall, sinewy creatures with glowing eyes and sharp teeth. They are unlike any animal Finn has ever seen, their forms both familiar and alien. They're the guardians of the forest, Atlas says softly, his voice filled with quiet reverence. Finn's mouth goes dry as the creatures circle around them, their eyes fixed on him and Atlas. Guardians? Finn whispers, still unable to tear his eyes from the creatures. They're not just survivors, Atlas replies. They've been here long before us. The flood, it awakened them. The creatures move closer, and Finn feels the weight of their gaze, a silent judgment. They are not enemies, but they are not friends either. The creatures circle them for what feels like hours, but finally, as if satisfied, They step back into the shadows, their glowing eyes fading into the darkness. Finn breathes a sigh of relief, but the fear lingers in his chest. What were they? Finn asks, his voice still shaking. Atlas looks at him, his expression solemn. They are the protectors of this land, Atlas replies. And they've been here long before us. The flood was not just nature's wrath. It was a warning. The balance of the forest is shifting. Finn looks up at him, confusion written on his face. But what does that mean for us? Atlas doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he looks toward the horizon, his eyes narrowing. It means that we're not the only ones fighting for survival, and the true test of survival has only just begun. The air grows thick with anticipation as Finn and Atlas find themselves on the edge of the forest. The storm has passed, and the once vibrant land now lies in a haunting silence. A final confrontation looms on the horizon. The last of the guardians, the creatures of the forest, have vanished into the shadows, leaving them alone. Yet the threat remains, a pack of wolves, drawn to the forest by the flood's fury. Finn's heart races as he glances at Atlas, who stands firm, his eyes scanning the darkening landscape. "It's time," Atlas says, his voice a quiet whisper but filled with resolve. Finn's legs shake with fear, but he steels himself. "What if we can't fight them?" he asks, his voice barely audible. Atlas looks down at him, his eyes soft yet determined. "Then we fight for each other," he replies. "The wolves are coming, and they are outnumbered. The forest is no longer a sanctuary. It is a battlefield, and they must fight to survive." The first howl of the wolves slices through the silence, sending a wave of dread through Finn's chest. Atlas doesn't flinch. "Stay close," he orders, his voice steady but filled with urgency. Finn nods, his small body pressed against Atlas' side, seeking the strength he knows his mentor holds. The wolves' howls grow louder, closer. The pack is circling, waiting for the right moment to strike. Finn can feel the tension in the air. He can almost hear the wolves' breath, feel their hunger. "We can't outrun them," Finn whispers, his voice barely audible. Atlas shakes his head. "We don't need to outrun them. We need to survive the first strike." Finn looks up at him, uncertainty in his eyes. "How?" Atlas smiles grimly, his voice full of quiet conviction. "We outlast them." The wolves emerge from the shadows, their eyes glowing with hunger and intent. Finn feels the weight of their gaze as they circle, their steps deliberate, their growls low and menacing. Atlas stands between Finn and the pack, his body tense but unmoving. "You will not get past me," Atlas growls, his voice low and powerful. The wolves stop, sensing the challenge, their growls growing louder. Finn's heart pounds in his chest and he takes a step back, terrified but unwilling to leave Atlas' side. The wolves are relentless, but so is Atlas. "Stay close," Atlas says again, his voice more command than a suggestion. Finn nods, his paws shaking, but his determination beginning to rise. This is not just a fight for survival, it is a fight for everything they have left. The wolves move as one, closing in on their prey with brutal efficiency. Atlas stands his ground, fending off the first strike with powerful swipes of his paws. Finn watches in awe and fear, his heart racing as the battle unfolds before him. He knows he cannot fight like Atlas, but he can help. As one of the wolves lunges at Atlas, Finn rushes forward, using the only thing he has left, his agility. He leaps onto a nearby log, launching himself at the wolf, biting at its fur. The wolf howls in surprise, but it doesn't relent. Atlas, seeing Finn's bravery, pushes back harder, his movements swift and precise. "Don't stop," Atlas shouts, his voice filled with urgency. Finn doesn't hesitate. He knows the only way to survive this is to keep moving, to keep fighting. The battle rages on, with Finn and Atlas fighting side by side, each strike, each bite, a testament to their will to survive. The wolves, relentless and hungry, continue to press forward, but the beavers are not backing down. As the fight reaches its peak, the leader of the wolves, a massive alpha, lunges at Atlas, knocking him to the ground. Finn, seeing the danger to his mentor, lets out a desperate cry. He rushes forward, throwing himself at the alpha with all his remaining strength. The two creatures collide, and for a moment, there is nothing but chaos. Finn fights with everything he has, his small body filled with raw determination. The alpha howls in pain, retreating into the shadows, the pack following suit. Forest falls silent once more. The battle is over. Finn stands panting and bruised, his eyes locked on Atlas. "We did it," he whispers, though the weight of their struggle is far from gone. The silence that follows the battle is thick with both relief and grief. Finn and Atlas stand in the clearing, the pack of wolves retreating into the shadows. Finn's heart still races, his body bruised and exhausted. The forest, once again, seems to hold its breath, as if waiting for the next challenge. Finn, panting, looks up at Atlas. "We survived, but for how long?" he asks, his voice uncertain. Atlas remains silent for a moment, his eyes scanning the now empty forest. "As long as we keep moving forward," he says quietly. "Survival is not about victory, it's about the next step." Finn, still trembling, nods. He feels the weight of Atlas' words, but also the quiet strength that lies within them. It's not over, but they are not alone. Together, they have a chance. The days that follow are spent in recovery. Finn and Atlas find shelter in a hidden part of the forest, a small nook near a stream that runs clear and steady. The food is still scarce, but at least they are safe, for now. Finn, though physically recovering, feels a deep, unshakable sadness. The fight for survival has taken its toll on him. And even with Atlas' constant strength, he feels lost. "It never ends, does it?" Finn asks, looking at the quiet stream. "The struggle." Atlas looks at him, his face softened by the quiet of their temporary refuge. "No," he replies, his voice steady. "But that's why we must keep moving forward. Survival isn't just about fighting. It's about remembering why you're fighting." As time passes, the forest begins to show signs of healing. The flood's devastation is still visible, but the new growth is undeniable. Finn feels a growing sense of connection to this land. Its resilience mirrors his own. He looks at Atlas one day, as they walk through a patch of new saplings and flowers. "Maybe the forest isn't so different from us," Finn says softly. "It heals just like we do." Atlas nods, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Exactly," he replies. "And just like the forest, we must remember that growth takes time. Healing takes time." Finn takes a deep breath, his heart feeling lighter. Perhaps there is hope after all, not just for the forest but for him as well. One evening, as they sit by the stream once again, the weight of the past month seems to settle around them. Finn reflects on everything they've endured, from the flood to the battles to the solitude they've faced. "We've lost so much," Finn says quietly, his voice filled with sorrow. "But we've gained so much too," Atlas replies, his tone soft but firm. Finn looks up at him, confusion in his eyes. "What do you mean?" Atlas turns to him, his gaze steady. "We've gained each other. We've gained the strength to face whatever comes next." Finn looks down at the stream, his heart filled with a quiet peace. There is no going back to what was. But what lies ahead, he now knows, is not something he has to face alone. As the forest continues to heal, so too do Finn and Atlas. The pain of their losses never fully fades, but they have learned to live with it, to grow alongside it. One day, as they walk further into the heart of the forest, Finn looks up at Atlas, a sense of peace settling within him. "We'll keep going, won't we?" Finn asks, his voice quiet but certain. Atlas looks down at him, a proud smile tugging at his lips. "Always," he replies. "As long as we're alive, we'll keep moving forward." Finn nods, his heart swelling with gratitude. They have found something that will carry them through, the will to survive, not just for themselves, but for each other. The forest is not the same as it once was, and neither are they. But together, they have learned that survival is more than just enduring. It's about finding hope in the darkest of places. The seasons shift once more, and the once devastated forest is now alive with new growth. Finn and Atlas stand at the edge of a small clearing, the morning light casting a soft golden glow across the landscape. The trees, though scarred by the storm, stand tall once again, their leaves fresh and green. Finn looks at Atlas, his body stronger, his heart lighter. "We've made it," Finn says, his voice filled with a quiet awe. "We've survived." Atlas smiles, but his eyes remain focused on the horizon. "Surviving isn't the end, Finn," he replies. "It's just the beginning. The world doesn't wait for us to catch up. We must keep moving forward, no matter how small the steps." Finn nods, understanding now what Atlas has been teaching him all along. The journey is never over, but they have found peace, for now. Days pass in peaceful solitude. Finn and Atlas settle into a rhythm of life in the forest, collecting food, building shelter, and learning the subtle ways of the land. But even in this new life, Finn feels the weight of the past, the memories of loss that still linger. One evening, as they sit by a newly constructed dam, Finn speaks up. "Do you think the others, my family, are still out there?" he asks, his voice quiet but hopeful. Atlas looks at him, his eyes soft with understanding. "We can't know, Finn," he replies gently. "But we carry them with us, in our strength, in our survival, in everything we do." Finn nods, a bittersweet feeling in his chest. The forest is alive again, but the memory of what was lost remains, a silent echo in the back of his mind. One morning, Finn wakes to find that the forest has changed again. The trees have begun to shed their leaves, and a crisp chill fills the air. Winter is coming. Finn looks at Atlas, a hint of fear creeping into his heart. "What will we do when it gets colder?" he asks, his voice laced with uncertainty. Atlas stands, his posture steady, his eyes watching the trees sway in the breeze. "We adapt," he replies simply. "We always adapt. The forest will guide us, just as it has before." Finn watches him, his heart swelling with gratitude. He knows that Atlas is right. Survival is not just about fighting the forces around them, but about understanding the cycles of the world. The change of seasons is just another part of life, and they will face it together, as they always have. Winter settles over the forest, and Finn and Atlas struggle to find enough food to survive. The cold is relentless, and every day feels like a battle. But even in the harshest conditions, there are moments of peace. Finn, curled up beside Atlas in their shelter, looks out at the snow-covered landscape. "We've made it this far," Finn says, his voice filled with exhaustion, but also a sense of accomplishment. Atlas nods, his eyes softening as he watches Finn. "You've done more than survive, Finn. You've learned. And that's what will carry you through." Finn feels a warmth in his chest at the words. He has learned so much, not just about survival, but about himself, about strength, and about the importance of those who are with him. The forest may be cold and unforgiving, but he no longer fears it. Spring arrives, and with it comes a new sense of hope. The snow melts, and the once barren landscape is now filled with the first signs of life. The trees begin to bloom, the birds return, and the air is warmer. Finn and Atlas stand together on the edge of a newly formed river, watching the waters flow. "We've come full circle," Finn says softly, his voice filled with wonder. "The forest is alive again." Atlas looks down at him, a proud smile on his face. "And so are we," he replies. Finn feels the weight of those words. They have survived not just the flood, but the winter, and now they stand together, ready to face whatever comes next. The journey has been long, but it is far from over. And for the first time in a long while, Finn knows that they will always have each other.